My girlfriend said, "Your dog bit me. He's dangerous. I'm calling animal control." My dog had never bitten anyone in 8 years. I replied, "Show me the bite." There was no mark. When I checked the nanny cam and saw her hitting my dog to make him aggressive, I honestly thought my brain had glitched for a second because none of that sentence made sense together in my life. Not with Max. Not with me. Not with the last 8 years I spent building a quiet routine around a golden retriever who was basically a walking smile. And for context, I'm 36M, divorced once, not dramatic by nature, the kind of guy who double-checks receipts and locks the door twice. And Max came into my life right after my divorce as a fuzzy, clumsy puppy who tripped over his own ears and followed me from room to room like I was a son. He grew up into this mellow, goofy dog who never met a stranger he didn't immediately trust. The kind of dog kids run up to the park and their parents don't panic because he just sits there wagging like an idiot. And that's important because when Lauren, 33F, my girlfriend a little over a year, moved in about 6 months ago, I told her straight up that Max wasn't negotiable. He sleeps in the bedroom. He's family. And she said all the right things at the time, laughed, scratched his ears, posted pictures with him like she'd won the wholesome lottery. And I believed her because why wouldn't I? Things were good at first, normal couple stuff, learning each other's habits, figuring out shelf space, arguing lightly about where the couch should go. But over time, these little comments started sneaking in, not big enough to confront, just sharp, enough to notice. Things like, "Wow, he sheds a lot," or "Do you really need to spend that much on dog food?" Or "Why does he have to sleep in here every night?" And I brushed it off because I figured adjustment takes time and Max had been my constant through a lot worse than a few passive comments. So fast forward to last Tuesday. I was working from home, door closed, headset on, in the middle of a call, when I heard Lauren scream from the living room. Not a startled yelp, but a full-throated scream that made my stomach drop. I ripped my headset off and ran out, and she was standing there clutching her hand, face flushed, eyes wide, and she said it immediately, like she'd rehearsed it. "Your dog bit me. He just attacked me." And Max was backed in the corner by his bed, tail tucked so far under him it looked painful, head low, eyes wide, shaking in a way I had literally never seen before, and I said, "What?" "Let me see." Because that's what you say when reality suddenly stops making sense. And she thrust her hand at me and said, "Right here. He got me." And I looked, really looked, turned her hand over, checked the palm, the fingers, the wrist, and there was nothing, no blood, no redness, no swelling, no teeth marks, nothing at all. And I said out loud before I could stop myself, "There's no bite." And her expression shifted in this way that set off every internal alarm I didn't know I had. She said, "What do you mean there's no bite? I felt it. It hurts." And I said, "If a dog bites you, there's a mark. Teeth leave marks." And she snapped, "So you're calling me a liar?" And that's when she said the thing that froze me. "I'm calling animal control. He's dangerous. He needs to be put down." And I remember feeling cold all over because euthanasia isn't some abstract concept when it's your dog. It's a loaded gun pointed at a member of your family. And I said, probably louder than I meant, to, "You are not calling anyone." And she fired back with this speech about what if he does this to someone else? What if it's a kid next time? How she can't live in a house with a dangerous animal. And Max was still cowering, still shaking, and nothing about that scene lined up with the story she was telling. She stormed off the bedroom saying she couldn't believe I was choosing a dog over her. And I knelt down next to Max, and he leaned into me so hard, he almost knocked me over, trembling, like he'd just survived something awful. And that's when something clicked in my head. A memory I hadn't thought about in months, back when packages started disappearing from our porch, and I installed a cheap nanny cam on the bookshelf aimed at the front door, mostly as a deterrent, and I'd mentioned it to Lauren when she moved in, casually, like, "Hey, just so you know there's a camera there," and she'd shrug, so I pull my phone out, hands actually shaking now, open the app, scrub back, about 15 minutes, and what I saw made me feel sick in a way that's hard to describe without sounding dramatic. Lauren was sitting on the couch scrolling her phone. Max asleep on his bed across the room, completely relaxed. She stood up, walked over, nudged him awake with her foot, and he did what he always does, tail wagging, expecting affection. She bent down like she was going to pet him, and instead grabbed his ear and twisted it, hard. He yelped and tried to pull away. She let go, waited, then grabbed his collar and yanked it tight so his body jerked. He yelped louder, tried to back away. She waited again, looked around like she was checking the room, and then slapped him across the face, not playful, not accidental, a full open-handed hit. And that's when he barked and showed his teeth, not lunging, not attacking, just reacting. And she immediately released him and started screaming. Perfectly timed for me to hear. And I remember just sitting there staring at my phone, like I was watching a stranger's life implode instead of my own, because it explained everything, the comments, the tension, the accusation, the non-existent bite. She had tried to manufacture a reason to get my dog taken away. And when I walked into bed with my phone in my hand, she was dramatically shoving clothes into a bag, saying she couldn't believe I was doing this. And I said, I saw the footage, and she froze mid-motion. Asked what footage, and I said, the camera, I saw what you did to him. And her face went through shock, then anger, then this calculated calm. She accused me of spying on her, recording her without consent, said it was illegal, and I said, it's a security camera in my house that you knew about, and it recorded you hurting my dog. And she tried crying next, said she was stressed, that she didn't mean it, that she loved Max, that it would never happen again, and something to me just shut off like a breaker flipped, and I said, get your stuff and leave. And she argued she lived there, and I said, you don't pay rent. You're not on the lease, you're a guest, and I'm asking you to leave. And she tried everything after that, guilt, anger, threats, telling me I'd regret it, and I just kept repeating the same sentence until she finally grabbed her bags and slammed the door hard enough to knock a picture off the wall. And as soon as she was gone, I took Max straight to the emergency vet, because adrenaline wears off and reality hits. And they found bruising on his ear and neck, documented everything, gave him a mild sedative because he wouldn't stop shaking. And when I got home late that night, my phone had dozens of messages from Lauren, ranging from apologies to threats, ending with, I'll make sure everyone knows who you really are. And I backed to the video again and went to bed feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. And the next morning my phone exploded because she'd gone nuclear on social media, posting about how I was emotionally abusive, controlling, how I threw her out with nowhere to go, and friends started texting asking what happened. And I kept it simple, because the truth doesn't need embellishment. I said we broke up and she moved out, and I waited, and sure enough, animal control showed up that afternoon. 2 officers saying they'd received a report about a dangerous dog, a bite incident, and I invited them in, showed them Max, showed them the vet paperwork, told them my ex had made the report after I ended the relationship, and asked if they wanted to see the video, and I watched their expressions change as the footage played, watched professionalism give way to disgust. One of them said quietly, that's animal abuse, and they closed the case on the spot, advised them to file a police report. And when they left, I did exactly that, attached the video, got a case number, and an hour later her mother called me screaming about how I'd ruined her daughter's life. And I said, did she tell you what she did to my dog? And she said no, just that my vicious animal attacked her. And I said animal control had cleared him, that there was video evidence of her hurting him. And she threatened me with lawyers and consequences. And I told her the police already had the footage. And she hung up, and that was just the beginning, because Lauren pivoted to legal threats next, claiming the recording was illegal, that she'd press charges unless I dropped the police report, and my friend Mark, who's a lawyer, laughed when I showed him everything and told me she was bluffing, that the video of her abusing Max was a much bigger problem for her than any imagined privacy claim. And I wish I could say that was the end of it, but it wasn't, because this story, like most real ones, didn't wrap itself up neatly at the point where justice becomes obvious. It dragged and twisted and got uglier before it got quiet. And that's where this really started to feel less like a bad breakup and more like a test of how much truth actually matters when someone decides to lie loudly.